Been off of work for a few days now. Went to the East Coast. It's amazing how much your perspective can change in 1 year. Take the MSF course. Some guy's been riding for most of his life. Just decides to become legal. Looks at me dead in the eyes and says, "Oh, this is literally your first time on a motorcycle." And of course it was. But he told me it was a very special thing. I thought he was getting sentimental. I thought he was a little bike crazy. You know what I mean? But there was something to it. Anyway, fast forward 1 year later, I'm seeing friends and family on the East Coast, and I'm thinking about riding the bike the whole time. And it's of course quite a ways away. Thinking about renting bikes over there. It's become integrated in my overall perspective. Like any other addiction, you try to include it to make your life a little better. Whether it be smoking pot before you go to the movies and before you go to work, using cocaine in the same manner, getting a little drink, incorporating that into everything you do because it just feels better. It's funny how blurred the lines are between what's a hobby, what's an addiction. Now, common teaching in basic psychology will tell you that when it starts to adversely affect facets of your life, like your work, your interpersonal relationships, or if it has notable adverse effects on your day-to-day functioning or health, that may be a good line to draw in terms of what an addiction or a simple hobby or form of entertainment start to take over. On the list of the kind of shit I wouldn't do on my old bike. I got a Tonin R6. Bike culture on the West Coast is awesome. You go to other parts of the country, you just don't see them, or at least in the Northeast, not as much. These people aren't making things easy for me, but we can't get around it. Anyway, motorcycles have bled into multiple facets of my life. My fiance's on the back of the bike. She's involved. And the whole vacation I'm over there thinking about bikes the whole time. I'm enjoying my family, of course. Don't get me wrong. You have to check yourself with anything, even motorcycles. You know, what's the big picture here? And also, what affords you to be in the motorcycle in the first place? Stable relationships, stable income, a job. That's when things start to flip. When you're not spending as much time with old friends that may not ride bikes, or you're not calling your family as much. Your girlfriend, wife, whatever it may be, is getting a little aggravated with you. Now, there are some of those that are just bitchy and need something to complain about and have nothing to do on their own. But any reasonable wife, girlfriend, etc. should be okay with you blasting out for a couple hours, a couple times a week. As long as she's not covered in baby shit the whole time. interesting. The cops don't split at red lights so much. I feel weird splitting past the cop. Just strange, because I'm taking a liberty that he's not taking. So I just go home, and my fiance is a keeper. Not only because she didn't give me shit about starting to ride motorcycles in Los Angeles of all places, but she also became involved. And when I haven't been home for several days and do this after I wake up, she doesn't get on me either. That's a keeper. People have to let you be yourself. But when you get used to splitting and suddenly you're not, like be in a car without any option to ride a bike, it's a little brutal. You feel very trapped. Even here in California, when you go from bike to car, it's pretty frustrating. And mind you, it's 90 degrees out right now, close to. I decided to put on a bunch of black clothing, helmet, sit on a bike that has a nuclear reactor sitting between its bearings, and go for a lovely ride. And I'm heading in the direction of higher heat too, away from the ocean. It goes to show you that you make some questionable decisions, at least from the perspective of a non-motorcyclist. What about the danger? How does that factor into the whole addiction versus hobby scenario? Or hobby within functional limits versus not? These are all just words that mean nothing. Danger is something that each person has to calculate for themselves. Numbers don't mean anything. There are a lot of dangerous things I could do at this very moment. I could split at extremely high rate of speed so that if I do have an impact, it's more likely to be something very severe, even if the car is stationary. Example, hitting a door when someone opens it, that's always a possibility. People love opening doors when stopped. It's a pastime for some people. Or you could go through an intersection, like the many I've been through already. Faster than, 15, 20 miles an hour, enough for you to, number one, be seen, number two, be heard, number three, assess what's happening, especially when people are making left-hand turns that have been itching and waiting for that one moment. They have to start the sausage. They gotta start cooking the sausage. They're getting late. Billy's gonna be at practice. I gotta put it in the oven. And that window is you, because you're either not seen or misjudged in terms of your speed or whether or not you're going to continue moving. Then you have one of the most frequent scenarios that hurt motorcyclists. I could also just go out and get high and decide that riding the bike is more fun when you're high than when you're not. Slightly increased risk. There's a lot of things to keep track of. I go to these canyon roads and just make it a point to get over as far as I can at every corner, just to see if I can do it to the side of the tires. I'll admit, it is fun to see how much rubber you've chewed up after a good ride, but when you start breaking out the time clocks on non-racetracks, and you start getting with a group of people that are pushing each other harder and harder, you're gonna hit a wall at some point. You're factored into all these statistics. Most people aren't doing this shit, but a lot of them are. Statistics, especially the crude form, that are collected on motorcycle accidents, do not take into account the individual's thought process, level of preparedness, and they do tell you, roughly whether or not there's a substance involved. I think at least 20% of accidents had substance. I think they're fatal accidents too. Had a substance involved, and that's if they test. That's if the police officer in the case doesn't happen to know the family of the person that's been affected. So that the danger of a motorcycle, yes, higher than a car. Is it impressively high? No. Not for someone who's very conscientious. Am I the most conscientious? No, I'm not. I see riders all the time that make better decisions than I do. If you take your average experienced, 40-something-year-old guy's been riding for 20 plus years, speeds are more reasonable, much less aggressive in the corners, treating intersections with the utmost respect. I mean, the risk is pretty low. You're basically at risk of someone just smashing into you. So you're basically at the same risk, in my opinion, other than the visibility issue. You're basically, in my opinion, the same risk that you are on a car of getting hit while you're still. Or moving if someone crosses the center line. Safety factor, I have a hard time saying that is something that is irrational and driven by an adrenaline-fueled positive feedback reward system that leads to you ignoring appropriate risks. I think if you getting on the bike in the first place pretty much defines where you sit, because that's when you're at most risk. That's when you haven't had that sort of thrill yet. When you first get on it, when you first start riding, when things are a little awkward, uncomfortable, and a little nerve-wracking. I think once you get beyond that point, there's not much that's going to stop you, unless you're frankly out of control and you get into several accidents and you realize that you will kill yourself on a bike. Then so that comes a time. So are people addicted? Addiction is a tricky word. It's used a lot. And whenever you start using words, you have to sort of step back and say, what's a practical definition? Regardless of what the stated definition is, what's a practical definition? I think a practical definition is it adversely affecting other parts of your life? Your desire to get out and be alone and not be reachable, put yourself at risk. Money as well, financially. Are you dumping everything you have into this at the expense of appropriate savings and planning for the future? I think as long as you're not having any cumulative effect on the aspects of life outside of motorcycling, a term like addiction is inappropriate. And I think it goes beyond a hobby for many of us, because it bleeds into so many other aspects. Hobbies can do that, and I think it's probably more of an appropriate term than addiction. But you could also start using a term like lifestyle, which can be annoying too. So all of a sudden there's an article in Esquire about motorcyclists.